You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 176. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action today. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. Today we have another book launch with Superbloom, and I am interviewing author Megan Tady. Superbloom is a fiction novel that is just so much fun to read, and yet it also had me crying on a flight back from New York because it had a moment in it that just tugged on my heartstrings. It was one of those, oh my goodness, yes, she had to put this in the book. And then all of a sudden there's a James Bond type of part to it, and it's got comedy in it, it's got love, it has grief, it is like all of the things combined. And so I was so excited to talk to Megan, Meg as I call her, because I wanted to know what her process was like. I wanted to hear about what her kids thought of her getting this book deal, because we have little girls who are the same age, and just to hear what this means for her. What does this mean when we talk about a life-changing moment? And how did she come to bring this book to fruition? Where did this idea stem from? And so I'm asking Meg all of these questions, and she is not holding back on the answers. We had such a wonderful, candid conversation, and I am so excited for you to meet Megan Tady. Hello, Megan.
Hi, Michelle.
I am so excited to talk to you today. And I said before, I feel like we already know each other. I stalk you on Instagram all the time.
I stalk you on Instagram all the time.
Oh, that means so much to me. You have no idea. Because I adore you.
Oh, thank you. You too. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Can you take a moment to introduce yourself to everyone, please?
Yes, I am Megan Tady. I'm the author of Superbloom, which publishes May 2nd from Zibby Books.
And when this airs, it will be May 2nd. So happy launch day.
Oh my gosh. Are you
serious? Let me be the first to say
Yay.
yes. Happy launch day.
I love that.
I should always, I forget to pre-emphasize that, before we record, that this will go live on your launch day. So happy book day.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
And hopefully it's just selling out like hotcakes.
Yes.
It was such a fun novel to read.
That makes me so happy.
Well, the cover alone is just too cute. There's cucumber eyes, and I will post a picture with my cucumber mask on in your honor. But it was such, I kept like, what's Joan going to do? Oh, poor Joan. I pictured her cute little house, and to me it was kind of cabin-esque, and I could just picture it all. And I love that, because that means it was so detailed to give me that vision in it.
Oh, that makes me so happy. It's been so fun to start to get reader feedback and hear the different things that people enjoyed and like what stood out to folks. And this book has been a long time in the making, so to have that happening now just feels sort of surreal. It's awesome.
Where did you come up with the backstory for it? Because it's fascinating. It's. We'll give a little synopsis. We don't want to give it away because you all need to go out and buy it. But Joan is a massage therapist, but that's not what they go by, right? Because that's like
no. You can say massage therapist.
You don't say masseuse.
That's right. Or you could call her a body worker. And she works at a luxury spa in Vermont, and she's hating her job. And she's not that good at it. But she's also hating her job because she lost her boyfriend 2 years ago, and she's still feeling the loss of that. So she gets a new client that sort of changes the direction of her life. But the idea of the book came to me because my husband surprised me for my birthday. It was February. I live in Massachusetts. He took me to a spa in Vermont. And I was getting a massage by someone who I was like, man, she does not want to be here right now. I could just feel it. And I was just the whole time during the massage, I was like, what is this job like? Am I her fifth massage of the day? What is it like to work here? And I wanted to pull her aside, much like Carmen Brauns does in the book with Joan, and say, tell me everything. The book was just already forming as I was on the massage table. So I left. I went to dinner with my husband. He happened to gift me a journal. And that very night, I started writing the first inklings of the book. And that was 8 years ago.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's where the story came.
Oh, I love it because it's when you read it, you will see these similarities. And oh, that's so great that it's real life in a novel. So, did you ever tell the masseuse or massage therapist body worker? I'm going to get this so wrong
No, that's
that
okay. That's okay.
that there's a book
No,
about her. Oh,
no,
we need to
because I don't
find her.
remember. I know. And I was so close to just being like, can I have a journalism background. So I've interviewed so many people, and I really came close to being like, can I take you to coffee tomorrow? Can I interview you? But I just felt awkward about it. So I didn't. But in order to really understand the massage world, I did end up interviewing at least half a dozen body workers who have worked in various settings, whether they're like a luxury spa or they work for themselves, and just to find out what that job is really like, and the different the joys and the challenges that come with it. It's a uniquely intimate and physically taxing job, and you are in a tiny room with someone, and you never know, unless it's a repeat client, who's going to end up on your massage table. So I just was like, that just is going to it's just fodder for so much humor, so much depth. And I was really excited to sort of dive in deeper to that the whole profession. And also, my character Joan, that profession didn't naturally sit with her, but for some people, like her friend Cher in the book, it really does. And so it was important for me to showcase both sides of it, because it's also an incredibly beautiful profession. So I wanted to show both sides.
And it's obvious you did your research because she does point out like different body parts and, oh, this is what's wrong with you. Then let me, touch on this muscle. And I was like, that always blows me away when an author dives in deep to make sure that it's accurate information. And yet that's not your background. So you had to go do that research.
I did. I have a yoga background. Over 10, 12 years ago, I was studying yoga. So some of that stuff, that sort of wellness speak, I can do. I can go to that, whether it's like the gua sha skin scraping tool, or that wellness speak I can cop to. And some of those muscle terms I already knew, but I also had some of the massage therapists read the book after and say, like, is there anything I'm getting wrong here? That I just, muscle wise, the way I say something, the terms I'm using, just to be sure. And that was really helpful.
I also loved the different characters that were included that worked there, because I just had these pictures of who's the guy that's very kind of like the yoga-esque,
Blue.
like, I just see him with the shirt unbuttoned and like hair in a ponytail. Like, you could just picture what this guy would look like.
Yes, completely. I am so endeared to this, quirky cast of characters. I love them so much. And each one sort of, allowed me to tap into like a humor aspect of what they brought to the table. But they also had a way of sort of surrounding and loving Joan and giving her an opportunity to realize the community around her and the friendships around her, the opportunities that she was kind of shirking for a while, and just allow those sort of to bubble to the surface. And it was just so fun to write these different people because they were all so quirky.
Yeah, from Deli to Deli's girlfriend
Oh God,
to the
right.
James Bond like moment at the end.
I know. I was like, I really want this to be a caper at the end. I wanted to I love slapstick. So I wanted to, and I think that's sometimes rare, I don't want to say completely rare, but for, female writers to really embrace slapstick and goofiness. So I wanted there to be a really silly, goofy side to the end that was still somewhat believable and also had the depth that I'm always looking for in the books that I love. The books that I love are always so funny and so tender, and you're laughing and you're crying, and it's like melding those two things. Those are my favorite.
And I did, because I believe that I sent you a message. I was on a plane and I was crying thanks to you.
That's so meaningful. That is so touching. I can't even tell you.
Yeah, I totally. And this is one of my bad things is that I will read on planes and it's always a book that makes me cry. So here I am, that woman passenger on the plane, tears streaming down as she's reading a book.
Oh my gosh.
So thanks. That was on my way home from New York. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So tell me about your background. Journalism, yoga, they don't normally go hand in hand. How did this all come to fruition that now you're an author with your debut novel coming out, but then you're already writing your second book?
That's true. So I grew up in Nebraska, and every time I tell anybody that, they're like, "What? People come from Nebraska?" And I'm like, "Yes." So I went to school for journalism, and I've been a writer since I was really young. I loved books. I loved writing. My grandmother got me a typewriter, and I was always in my room creating stories. And I always thought my first book would be nonfiction. Even though I loved books, I didn't imagine that I had fiction in me. So I think probably at least, like 10 years ago, I started dabbling with fiction a little, just short stories. And I started taking some classes locally. And I was dabbling and I was writing these short stories and really enjoying myself. And then my husband, took me on this trip, and that novel idea just, smacked me in the face. And I came back and I was still taking these classes. And in those classes, those workshops, I began writing these early chapters of Super Bloom. And much like Joan in the book, giving herself permission to call herself a writer, to call herself an author. And at what stage do we allow ourselves to do that? Does someone have to sort of come with their wand and be like, now you have earned this? I
feel
took a
that.
while. Yeah, I think a lot of us do. I took a while to, embrace that identity, even if I hadn't had success, quote unquote, that the act of writing in itself made me a writer. And I queried this novel really early, way too early in the process, probably a year and a half after I wrote it. And it was not ready. And I heard crickets from agents, him like, here's my book, everyone will want it. And I heard crickets. And I was like, okay, I've got a lot to learn. So in between, I also run my own business now as a writer and an editor. It's called WordLift. And so as I was running my own business and as I was having two young children, I was slowly reworking the book, learning as much as I could about it. And I then queried again a few years ago, and I queried 70 agents, and I got 15 full requests for my manuscript, but no offers. Yeah, but no offers. And it was like, okay, so something's working and something's not working. And again, I'm back at the drawing board. I had a writing group at that point. And my agent, who became my agent, rejected first and sent me the best rejection letter saying, I love this. I think you have a stakes problem. I can't crack it. And I'm reluctantly passing. And I cried. And then I was like, okay, I've got a stakes problem. Let me figure this out. And it was the best feedback. And I took probably another 9 months working on it. And then I went back to her and was like, would you read this again? And she said, I'd be delighted to. So in the meantime, a few months go by. I mean, I think when you start out, you think of all the overnight success stories, that we're all enamored with, and you think it's going to be really quick, and you hope it's going to be really quick. It's often really long and really slow. And a few months went by, and then I ended up submitting to Zibby Book without an agent. And they ended up acquiring the novel, and I wasn't agented at the time. And I went back to my agent now and said, I have a book deal. And she said, give me the night. Give me one night. And she read the book overnight and offered, the next day. And the whole week was just like, all my dreams coming true. Agent, book deal, amazing call with Zibby and her team. And that's where, how we've ended up today. I think I just went from like a long span of time, but that's sort of where we ended up.
That's fascinating to get the deal before the agent, and
Yeah.
I get it that it takes time. I mean, I wrote my book fairly quickly, as we had discussed, but it's still been like over 2 years, 2.5 years since this all began. And yet in the grand scheme of things, it's like, 2 years just went by like none other. It's still going to be close to a year before it comes out and the world reads it. But writing a book is a long freaking process.
It's a long process. And I realized I naively sort of thought, if you're any good at this, you will get scooped up right away. And if you're not, then, you won't. And that means you shouldn't do it. And I realized that most of the people who get published are just refusing to quit. And they're working
Mhm.
and they're working on it and they're slogging away. And sometimes they're even putting 1, 2, 3 novels in a drawer and starting again. And as I started listening to a lot of other authors' stories, how they got published, the amount of rejection they had to face. I was like, oh, okay, this is the journey, and it was very humbling, and and I learned a lot along the way, and I learned how to write a novel. I don't have my MFA, and it's even a few years into writing it, I finally took a class. I hadn't even really taken a class on plot structure, 3-act structures, different ways to structure a novel, why something, your inciting incident, different, plot tools. And I was like, oh, this is really helpful. And it doesn't mean that I have to follow this, exactly, but there's a reason why this works. So really humbling myself to just being a student of all of this whole process was really important.
I was going to ask you about the classes and workshops, and do you think they're necessary to take? As we've been talking about, maybe I should write a fiction book. Is that something that you would say, yeah, everybody who wants to write a novel should go take a class? And where do you even begin? Like, what kind of a class? You don't have to get your MFA in it, your master's, everybody, but where should you even start besides the blank page?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I definitely am not prescriptive about you have to go take a class because, first of all, everyone's resources are really different. And there are so many ways to plug into these communities without having to spend a lot of money or any. There are just such incredible podcasts out there that are devoted to emerging writers, actually teaching skills and teaching the art of querying a novel, which is just completely different than writing your novels. So, there's the Manuscript Academy, there's the Shit No One Tells You About Writing podcast. And it was through that podcast I just mentioned that I got connected with my writing group, free. Yeah. And so suddenly these like 5 people all throughout the country working on a common goal, able to send pages back and forth monthly and give feedback and get feedback. And the practice of giving feedback is so valuable because you have to figure out not only why something's not working, this, these opening lines aren't working for me. Well, why? Like, why isn't it hooking the reader? Why isn't it hooking you? And to be able to articulate that or to say, oh my God, this is beautiful. This pulled me in. Why? So then you can take that and apply it to your own pages. So I think giving feedback is as important as getting feedback on your work.
I love that.
Yeah. And then there are just so many other free or affordable resources online on YouTube, those sort of things. And I also think there are really great local writing classes where you can go and sit in a room with people and go around in a room and you have to read your work out loud and it's so vulnerable and but you're getting immediate feedback in that setting and you're hearing other people's work and it's a really beautiful thing to do and those are usually available in a lot of people's communities.
I love it. Tell me about the day that you got the call from Zibby Books where they said, we're going to give you a deal. What was that like? Because I know what mine was like. I want to hear your story.
It was amazing. I mean, I got an email from Zibby that said, we're loving Super Bloom. I may never be able to get a massage again, thanks to you. But we need some more time. So give us till the end of the week. And I was like, oh my God. I had so many no's up to this point. I had so many no's that my kids were used to seeing me cry and they would say like, if you don't like mom's book, I'm going to kick you in the head. Like they would just,
oh my gosh, they must be related to my kids.
Yeah. They just saw it. And my husband, so I got that and I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, end of the week. Is that Friday? Is that Sunday? What's the end of the week?
Oh my gosh. I think we've had the same experience where I'm like, end of week is what day for what? It is Friday. I remember Googling end of week. What day is that for something? And it was book related. And I'm like, no, it is Friday. Okay. I'm just making sure that that's what everyone else thinks the end of the week is.
Oh my gosh. I did the same thing. And I was texting all my girlfriends and all my writing friends was like, oh my gosh. So the end of the week came and a few more days passed. And of course, I'm just like, they're hating it. They whatever. And I was actually in a Zoom writing group with a couple of my writing friends, and we were critiquing someone's work. And I went to my email because I was pulling up something that one of them had written in an email. And that's when Zibby's offer came through, and they have a picture of me just like,
oh, that's awesome. Someone took the screenshot.
Crying. Yeah, a screenshot of me just like, teary and just beyond excited. And it's been life-changing. It's been completely life-changing. And it's been a very dreamy publishing experience. And when I first had my phone call with Zibby, she was like, oh, I just want to chat with you on Friday. This was a few days after the offer. And I got on and the whole editorial team got on and they were like, we love Super Bloom. And I was like, what? And from the beginning, they're like, we really want this to be a dreamy experience for our authors. And it has been that and more. And I don't have anything to compare it to, but I'm having a blast, and their way that they're representing my book and me, and, I have now bought my second book, has been just an incredible experience.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You said life-changing. So what has been life-changing about it? Tell me.
Yeah, I think it's that it's allowing me to work on my second book. And I said in the beginning of the podcast, that it took a long time to sort of say, I want to write a book. And then it took a long time to sort of say out loud to my family, to my friends, I want to be a fiction author, and I want to start to curve my path and my whole professional journey to this lane instead of the lanes that I was on. And those lanes were writing and editing copy for clients, websites, magazines, that sort of thing, which I still do and love, but also to have my time and energy more filled with fiction. And that's now happening, which is just, I hear a lot of writers say writing is a slog. And for me, it's not. I actually I pine for it. I don't have enough time for it. I love it. I have such a blast with it. So in that way, it's been completely life-changing. It's also, you kind of forget when you're quietly writing your novel, and I'm a bit of an introvert, that it's requiring you later on in the process to then go talk about it, and to talk about it in a really publicly facing way. And I can be really gregarious and silly, sort of like on Instagram or with my friends and family, but to sort of, stand up in front of a room and do a reading or answer questions is a very new skill for me, and one that really tests my nerves. So I'm, just as I learned to write a novel, I'm now learning to be a public speaker. And that's really exciting and a little scary.
Well, you're doing great. I know not everybody thinks that podcast is public speaking, but I believe it is, because you are, although we're an intimate conversation, other people are listening. So that's public speaking.
Now you just scared me, Michelle. I'm thinking of the
No,
audience.
we're already 25 minutes in. There's nothing to be scared about.
I'm just kidding.
So your children who were ready to kick some butt on your behalf, what was their reaction when you got the deal?
They're so awesome. So they, first of all, my daughter was like, "How long have you been writing this book, Mom? Like a year?" And I was like, "No, before you were born, I started it." She's 7. She was like, "No, you didn't." And I was like, "I think you've only started to become aware of me as like a fully formed person beyond just a mom, maybe like a year ago. So, I know you think I've just started it then, but I've been working on it for a long time." And the book didn't, we just got the early copies a few weeks ago. So they couldn't understand it fully, and I would say, well, you're going to see it in the library. And that got them really jazzed.
Yes.
But when we got the early copies and I opened the box with my kids, my daughter took a video, and they were so thrilled. And it's been so fun. I'm really excited for them to see me as a working writer and to say often to them, I'm going to go write right now. And that is now a really normal thing in our household. And, you guys are doing this, Dad's making dinner, I'm running upstairs, and I have to get some words on the page. And I think that that's really valuable to them. I don't know how, we'll see how that unfolds, but they love to read. And my daughter was like, "Can I read your book?" And I was like, maybe parts of it. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe not yet.
Mine were the same way. The library for them was like the kicker. We can check your book out someday. Oh my gosh. And then I told my son, my editor was like, well, my kids were really excited that I'd be in the Library of Congress. So I'm like, guess what? I'll be in the Library of Congress. My son's like, oh, we got to go to DC then. Like, we got to do that. But I would do the same thing with them. My door would be open. I'd be typing. And they have a tendency to come in and just start talking. And I said, if you see my head down and my fingers typing, I'm working on the book and I can't be interrupted because there's a thought. And if you take that thought away, then the book can't be written. So you wait, you can stand there, you can stalk me, but you wait until I am done with the thought and it gets on the paper, and they understood it. And then I would keep track. I'm a pen and paper person. So I would write down each day how many words I had written with the goal of 1,000. And they'd come in, did you get to 1,000 today? Oh, you did over 1,000. Good job, mommy. I think it's great for them to see us doing this, set the goals, and to see it come to fruition. My son cried when I told him. He literally broke down in tears.
He did.
He goes, I'm just so proud of you. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's I think for these kids watching me and watching you work really hard on something and just keep at it for a long time is probably just so important. And the other thing that I've been really, upfront about with this sort of the nerves about public speaking, I have a studio space down the street, and I gathered some friends sort of for an art salon to have my first reading, to just start practicing this. I've never done a reading of my work besides these little groups that I was in. So we went to set up early, and my daughter, was there, and she was like, "Okay, Mom, just read to me, like just practice." She's 7. And so I did. And she was like, "You're doing great. You're doing great." And to be able to be vulnerable with our kids and say, "This thing is hard for me, and I'm still going to try it." And I might even show my nerves to people around me, and that's okay. And then coming home we had a sitter, and came the next morning. She was like, "How was it? How did you do?" And to say, I did great. I stumbled a little. I started off nervous, but I got there. And, I just think that's really important for them to see.
It is. And I love that we're also showing them a side of, what it takes to be an author in the publishing world that they wouldn't otherwise see, so they can have that greater appreciation of what it takes for all of these books to be on their shelves and to check out the library, because it's work. And so they get that. It's not just poof, there's a book, go check it out, go read it, put it back on the shelf.
I'm stunned now that I know everything that goes into a book. All the people that work on it, how long, how many times an author has to read it before it gets published, just the level of detail. I have so much respect for every book on the shelf now. I'm just like, bow to all of you who have worked so hard on every book that has come out. It is such a labor of love.
And bow to you on your launch day.
Yay!
I love it. I'm so proud of you. I'm so lucky to know you, to get to talk to you. It's such a treat to get to speak to the person that wrote the book that I so thoroughly enjoyed and made me cry and laugh. It's not a downer.
Thank you, Michelle. That is so kind of you.
Where can everybody buy the book? Where can they follow you, stalk you, find you?
You can follow me at Meg Tady. That's Instagram. And you can buy the book at any of your local bookstores and anywhere books are sold. It's just type in Super Bloom. There it is.
Yay. Thank you so much and happy book launch day.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, friends, you need to be running out and buying Super Bloom today so you can read about Joan and her escapades at the luxury spa and how this celebrity Carmen Bronze comes into her life and really turns it upside down for what seems like the worst, but turns out to be for the better. I loved getting to talk to another author about what it was like to get the news of receiving a book deal, of what that meant to her children. Because being an author and being a mother at the same time is very intertwined. We get our families involved. And I think that being that example, having your kids see you go through the ups and the downs and have to practice so much patience are such important life skills. So I really appreciated that Meg shared all of this with me and with all of you. And I hope you go out and get her book. I really, really enjoyed it. And I can't wait for her second novel to come out all through Zibby Books. Thank you, Zibby, for bringing these authors to life and for allowing us to read these great works of art. Until next time, my friends, go get that massage.